It is a strange time right now, Tyler, to be a college student. So many students, because of the remote learning, some of them are deciding maybe a four-year university is not for me just yet. More and more people are looking into community college. And with more on this, let's bring in Michael Hansen. He's the president for the Michigan Community College Association. Great to have you with us.
Good to be here. Thanks.
So explain to us, I believe, there are 28 community colleges in the state of Michigan?
Yeah, 28 public community colleges.
Are you seeing enrollment numbers increase during the pandemic or decrease?
Well, somewhat ironically, we're seeing enrollment numbers decrease. And I say ironically because if you would have asked most of the local and national experts a year ago when we entered this pandemic, most people were predicting a large surge and spike in community college enrollments. Why? Because the conventional wisdom was that students that were planning to attend the university would make the decision, it might make more sense to stay home. If we're online anyway, why don't I just stay home, take classes from my local community college until the pandemic subsides, then I'll transfer all those credits back to the university. We didn't see that happen. And second of all, typically in a recession, if you even go back 30 or 40 years, you'll see that every time there's a recession, community college enrollments go up, which makes sense. As people become unemployed, lose their jobs, look for new skills, they return to the community college to get those skills to get back into the labor market. We didn't see that happen either. And I think there are, many reasons for that. Two primary reasons are because a lot of our students were impacted by COVID, meaning they either had friends or family or relatives who were conflicted with COVID and therefore were very cautious about returning back to school. Or their kids were now home and somebody needed to be home with the kids. And so this was not the right time to be starting a college career and going back to school when you had these issues at home. So for a number of reasons, we didn't see enrollment increases like we thought we would.
So with that, I'm really surprised because, like you said, all the reasons that you just named, because if I'm paying for college for my son or daughter, and they're remote right now, I'm like, no, you're staying home and going to the community college, because a community college, you do offer so many unique programs, but also there's a good partnership with the community colleges and the four-year universities so students can transfer those college credits.
And increasingly so, that partnership. At the association, we've been working with our friends in the public and private university sectors over the last several years to develop more pathways to a transfer degree. So the goal is that if you get an associate's degree at any community college in the state in a number of these transfer degree programs, you should be able to transfer seamlessly to the university. You start as a junior, you don't lose credits, and you graduate in 2 more years with your bachelor's degree. And those agreements are in large part now in place, so you're absolutely right. It makes a lot of sense now, even more so, for students to start their career at a community college where it's often a third or a quarter of the cost of the university, then transfer those credits. You'll still graduate from Oakland University, and it'll say, your degree will say bachelor's degree from Oakland University. Whether or not you've taken 60 or 80 or 90 credits at the community college, that's just for you to decide. But your degree will be an Oakland University bachelor's degree.
Michael Hansen with us here on the MegaCast. He's the president for the Michigan Community College Association. Michael, can you give us a breakdown of what your typical student is? Because in my mind, it seems a lot of times when we're talking about community college, it's older adults going back to get an education.
Yeah, there no longer is sort of the typical student because it's such a wide variety of mix. Certainly, the average age of a community college student has historically been much older than a university student. The average age has been around 27, 28. Now it's starting to come back down. Part of that is because of the increased number of dual enrolled students with our high schools. We have great partnerships Almost every community college now has some kind of what we call an early college program designed for high school students to start their college degree and their career often in 9th and 10th grade. And by the time you graduate from high school, you have both your high school diploma and an associate's degree, which is a huge leg up for these students to then continue on with their studies, either at a 4-year degree, or a lot of these are in occupational programs that are 2-year degrees. So you come out at graduate high school with a nursing degree, for example. It's really a fantastic deal, but that program has also tended to drive down the average age of our students. Many of our students are first-time generation students, meaning they're the first person in their family to go to college. So they need those extra supports that a community college can provide. Remember, the mission at a community college, which differs from the mission of most universities, is that our focus is teaching and learning. There's no requirements on faculty to publish. There's no research components. Our faculty, who are mostly PhDs, often also teaching at the university, are there because of teaching and learning. The class sizes are smaller. The programs are more individualized and customized. So it's really a great start for many of our students.
Oh, I know I used to have to do recruiting in my previous position, and I always like to recruit at the community colleges because there's so much diversity at the community college, and you can reach so many various people in different demographics and different backgrounds, and it's like you said, so many of them are going to college for the first time. What was that like for some of these community colleges, though, to have to support these students during the pandemic, many of whom aren't your typical student, maybe have trouble getting access to computers and the internet?
It was a challenge for sure. But again, that's sort of the mission of our community colleges. So they were, I can't say they were prepared, but they certainly had the technical knowledge and skills to be able to do this. We were also very fortunate that the federal government, through some of their stimulus packages, passed some funding relief to community colleges, and they dictated that half of that money had to go to students. So the millions and millions of dollars that came from the federal government for COVID relief, half of the money went to students, and often that money went, and we saw that in increased retention numbers, meaning that students from fall to spring, they stayed because they now had that support, that financial support that many of them used to do things other than just paying tuition, but things like childcare and transportation and food and other kind of what we call wraparound services and needs that these students needed that we were able to deliver because of the stimulus money through the feds.
So I know there is a big push right now through the Whitmer administration to try to bring in new students into the community colleges and to help bolster our economy as well. The Futures for Frontliners program. Can you tell us how is that going?
Well, very well. That was a program announced by the governor about a year ago that for any person that had been working in one of the designated occupations which were required to stay open during the pandemic. Remember, a lot of things closed, but a lot of services and businesses needed to stay open, whether it's in delivery or grocery or first responders. And the governor felt there should be a way that we reward these people. And so she offered this program called Futures for Frontliners, which was eligible for anybody in these occupations to come back and get a free college education. So it's tuition free at their local community college for people in those designated areas. Last check, there were over 100,000 people that had signed up for Futures for Frontliners. So clearly there's huge demand. And it was also somewhat of the precursor, the test run, if you will, for the new program, which launches this spring called My Reconnect, Michigan Reconnect. And that program is also a tuition-free program for community colleges for adults, anybody 25 and over who does not have a bachelor's degree. If you've started at a community college at some point and dropped out, you can return. If you're just new into the higher ed environment, you can start, if you're an adult at 25 or older, and get your college tuition paid for. So, but that was a bipartisan program sponsored by the legislature and signed into law by the governor. And that Reconnect program starts this spring. Both of them are just fantastic programs. I think there are over 40,000 people that have applied for Reconnect. And again, we just opened those applications a few weeks ago. So there's clearly demand, but we recognize tuition isn't the only barrier for a lot of these students. And that's why these, wraparound services, that's why these other supports for students are so critical that we maintain.
Michael Hansen with us here on the MegaCast. He's the president for the Michigan Community College Association. And Michael, when we're talking about some of these programs, are there certain programs that these new students are going to be eligible for, or is it anything they wish to study?
Essentially anything they want to study, any of the credit programs. Community colleges offer a lot of non-credit programs. Those would not be eligible, but any of the academic or career programs that are for credit are eligible. Even a short-term certificate. So if it's just a 15-week program, that can be eligible as well. And that's nice because that gets people a credential that they can take into the workplace, get a job, and then continue on and ladder that, add on to that certificate program and come back and get their associate degree.
So looking at Michigan's economy, as someone who is focused on college education and higher education, what are the gaps? What arenas would you give advice to people to go into if they're looking for job growth right now?
Yeah, I mean, the state is pretty good at publishing labor market information like that, where you can go and check out and see where there's big openings in field. But clearly healthcare, a lot of the technology and computer, cybersecurity kind of programs and fields are always in high demand. And I think it's important to remember, too, that a community college, a lot of people think that's where you get trained for some of these occupational programs. But again, about half of our students are there because they want ultimately to get a bachelor's degree, maybe in accounting or business. And they use the community college as that first 2 year, that stepping stone, and then transfer those credits. So we have programs for everybody, whether or not your goal is a bachelor's or a master's or a PhD at some point, or if you'd rather just enroll in one of these technical programs like the healthcare programs, nursing, but all of the other technology-related programs, manufacturing and welding and mechanics and those kind of things.
So I know that when I went to college, I went to the College of Charleston, and sometimes it was really hard to get into the classes that you needed. Like you couldn't get into, communications 201, but you could go to the community college, and they had one that would transfer. So I was able to, even though I would pay the College of Charleston tuition, but go to the community college because those classes were open and would transfer over. Do you have similar such programs on your platforms?
Yeah, we do. As a matter of fact, both, I think, Oakland Community College and Macomb Community College have programs like that where you can co-enroll with Oakland University, for example, and I think at Wayne State as well. So you co-enroll it, and then you take classes back and forth wherever there's opening in your schedule. Sometimes there's openings at the community college, sometimes there's openings at the university. For the class that you want. And when you're done, you have both an associate's degree and a four-year degree, but for the student, it's somewhat seamless. You're just taking classes where they fit your schedule the best. Those are really innovative programs. We also have something called Michigan Colleges Online, and that allows you, if you're a student at Oakland Community College, but you need that accounting class or communications class and it's full. If you go to Michigan Colleges Online, you can take that accounting or that communications class from any other community college in the state through online, through Michigan Colleges Online, but it gets transcribed at Oakland. You pay tuition at Oakland. For you, it's seamless, but you're taking the class from another community college around the state. And that's how we also help mitigate some of that supply and demand of our course loads.
That's a great program. And it's a little secret for people. They don't realize that they can do some of these things because if you have one class, it's a prerequisite for another class, but you can't get into the lower level, it could really hold you up a semester or longer in trying to finish that program. What do you think is going to be the future of community colleges? Will they be online from here on out?
Well, that's a really good question that people right now are asking themselves all across the country. What is the future of not only just education, but of work? Are we ever going to get back? I'm working at home now. It works much better than we thought. Are people comfortable with an online education, or do they want to get back and have that interaction with their peers, their students, especially in some of these occupational programs? It's awful hard to teach a welding class completely online. At some point, you need to hold those tools and you need to run that bead. So I think there will be some return back to in-person, face-to-face programs, but there also may be, the future may be a greater shift to online education and online learning because of flexibility and adaptability of a lot of these programs for students.
Yeah, I think some of the colleges were actually better prepared to be able to deal with this and adapt to these programs because online has been there for quite some time. I'm old school. I want to go into the classroom. It's the discussion to me that's such a vital part of the classroom environment. And talking about, adult education, I try to take a Photoshop class. I can't do it online. I just can't. I need that teacher to say, no, you click that button, Otherwise, it's taking forever. But before we let you go here, just a couple more minutes with you. Michael Hansen with us here. He's the president for the Michigan Community College Association. What advice would you give to parents who are looking at sending their child off to college? We have a lot of students, they're about to graduate high school this year. That college experience is not what they were hoping to get. Would you suggest or recommend that they start with a community college?
Absolutely. I mean, like anything else, it sounds maybe interesting to say, let's take a year off. But the reality is, for a lot of students, that gap year becomes an unfulfilled promise of furthering your education. I would strongly recommend at least getting started. It's not perfect, if you have to take more classes online than you would hope for, but at least you keep the momentum, you keep going, you've got a goal in mind, and with a little perseverance. And, I think everybody realizes that once the vaccines really become more widely available, we'll get back to where we can all feel more comfortable in an online or in an in-person environment. But if you drop off, if you step out for a while, it's so much harder to restart. I would suggest continuing on, even if it's one or two classes. Keep your toe in the water, if you will. Keep up with your education, and that degree will come. It will be there, and that has huge market payoff, in the labor market.
And with that, Michael, how many of these community colleges are actually back in the classroom right now?
It varies a lot across the state, as you might imagine. In some regions of the state, 80% are back face-to-face, 20% online. In other areas, it's the opposite, 20% face-to-face and 80% still online. That has to do with local conditions. It has to do with local comfort. It has to do with programming that's available at each of these colleges. So it really depends on the local college. But more and more, the trend is, going back to more people coming back face to face, and especially as the vaccines become more widely available, we'll start to see those numbers shift back to face to face.
How is the workforce right now? We know a lot of school districts are struggling. They need teachers pretty badly. What's it look like on the community college level?
It's always, a struggle to find good qualified faculty, but we feel pretty fortunate. The community college model is such that you can teach at your local community college, maybe just one class a week at night. And for a lot of professionals and a lot of people out in the trades, this is a great way for them to give back. And so we've always been fortunate that we're able to recruit really talented and motivated faculty who want to teach. And because that's what it's about, again, it's about teaching and learning. They don't have to do research. They don't have to sit on committees. They don't have to participate in a lot of the publishing requirements. They can just come back, teach the skills in the areas they love, and do it part-time and be really good and successful at it.
I know when I was a student, I always enjoyed having professors that were actually in the industry as well. I feel like they bring a different perspective to the classroom.
That's exactly right. And, many of our faculty are that. They're nurses, they're tradespeople, they're lawyers who come back and just want to give back to their local community. They enjoy the energy that students provide, and it benefits both. It benefits them, but the students love it too, as you said, because now you've got somebody that actually knows how to use this machine or actually has experience litigating a case or whatever. So it's really a win for both.
And it's networking.
It's very good networking. As a matter of fact, a lot of our faculty recommend these talented students that they get in their for their next job, whether or not it's in. There was somebody in video production the other day we were calling, and they said, "Well, I've got a student that's really good at this." So anyway, it works really well.
That's awesome. Michael, anything maybe we didn't touch on that you want to share before we say goodbye to you today?
No, we're just we're very fortunate that the governor and the legislature had the foresight to develop programs like Reconnect, this free college tuition program. Encourage everybody to take advantage of that. It's really a great deal. So we're ready when they are.
And how can people find out more about that?
You can go to the state's website, myreconnect.gov, and there's lots of information there.
That's great. It is a good program. And again, if we can lift up our community, especially the ones that have been working throughout this entire pandemic, then that is a great thing to do because it lifts all of us up as well. Michael Hansen with us here on the MegaCast. He's the president for the Michigan Community College Association. We so appreciate your time.
It's been fun. Thanks.